You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Well, I'm excited this afternoon to have Mike Gerdin here, the CEO of Heartland Express Trucking Company. How you doing,
Hey,
Mike?
thanks for having me, Gary. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun. So
All right.
maybe if we could start out, I think most people have seen your trucks all over, and North Liberty at the interchange, you see trucks in and out all the time.
Yeah.
Hopefully you want them out, not in, right?
That's right.
Otherwise, the economy's a little slower if they're sitting there.
Yeah, we need them on the road for
You need
sure.
'em turning and burning. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought we'd start a little bit. If you could tell us a little bit about your family, and maybe you can get into a little bit about the background of your father and Heartland Express.
Right.
But I'd just love to know more about your family, where you came from, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my father grew up in Princeton, Minnesota, and his dad was a trucker, right? Had a little trucking company with my grandmother, and that's kind of how he got his start as well, was in the family. He ended up going to Moorhead State where he met my mother, who's from Sabin, Minnesota, right up there by Fargo, and they went to Moorhead together. And then Dad would, and my grandfather, Wilford, they would buy these little trucking companies that were really small, like 3, 4, 5 trucks, and they'd build them up a little bit till they're 20, 25, 30, maybe 40 trucks, and then they'd sell them. And so they did that for a while after my dad got married, and they were out in Nebraska. Then they moved to Shenandoah, Iowa, and they had a trucking company there till about 1975. And I was about 5 years old then. I was born in 1969.
What'd they haul back then?
They hauled swinging meat,
Really?
reefer trailers, anything frozen. They hauled that kind of stuff, and just general freight as well. Didn't have a whole lot of trucks. He ends up selling that in 75, like I said. And then in 1978, he bought a little company over here in Swisher, Iowa, called Scott's Transportation. It had 16 trucks. And where the Kava House is in Swisher was our original headquarters, right? And Swisher, Iowa, was 16 trucks. And soon after that, he decided that, it was too small in Swisher. It's where he went down to Corville, where you and I were talking earlier. And at that point, there was no exit at that interchange there. It was just I-80 going right by. And the ground was really hilly, right? And so for 2 years, 3 years, I don't know, I was pretty small then. He moved the trucking company down there, and then he bought a bunch of these bulldozers and earth moving equipment. He flattened all the ground, right? And he just worked on it in his time off or whenever. My grandpa helped him, and some of the other earth movers around here helped him, and he flattened all that out. And then they just let it sit there for a while. And eventually, Rockwell decided that that'd be a good spot for them. And so he built the Rockwell building, right? And so all during this time, from 78 until about 1986, we were a private company. In 1986, we went public with a whopping total of $21 million of gross revenue. Wow. And about 120 trucks. Very small.
Tell us a story. I read somewhere where your dad pulled you out of school and said you're going to go out to see on Wall Street in action.
Yeah.
When you did the IPO. Right. Tell us about that, what you learned and how that experience was.
Right. So that would have been 1986. And, he had decided that he was going to sell Heartland at that point and start all over again and do it again. But Wall Street came and said, hey, why don't you just sell about 80% of this company or 70%, keep that, and take the rest public. He didn't even know what an IPO was at that point, but he said, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I'll keep 70% or 60, I can't remember the exact number, and let the rest go public, right? And so that's how we got our start in 86. And he said, hey, Mike, tomorrow, pack your stuff, and we're going to New York. I'm like, well, Dad, I got basketball practice or what? He's like, no, you don't. We're going. You'll learn more on this trip than you'll ever learn, in high school. So it was about a week-long trip that I was out there with them, and we just went to different banks different investing groups, and tried to sell the stock, and that was the beginning.
You were a sophomore?
Yeah, it's probably a sophomore. Mm-hmm.
And who brokered it? Goldman Sachs or
It
Morgan
was
Stanley?
Payne Weber.
Payne Weber.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that was interesting. Everybody
It
had
was.
suits, and your
Oh
probably
yeah,
those corporate
suits,
offices.
ties. Yeah, we're in Boston, we're in New York, we're in Baltimore, all up and down the East Coast for a week.
And so you had to
the
sell
stock.
yourself, sell the stock, sell about Heartland,
Yep.
what you do,
Yep.
how you haul.
Yep.
You don't deadhead. You try to bring something back, right?
Exactly.
Make it productive.
Exactly.
All that. So.
All that. Yeah.
And as you look back, was that what kind of experience was that?
It's so long ago, and I've been out there so many times now and
Yeah.
done it over and over and over. It's hard for me to remember, but I do remember him pulling me out of school and us flying out there, and then it's kind of all a blur after that. So many meetings and so many people that we met with. And it's a long time ago.
Yeah, and you saw the Wall Street Bull, right?
Oh yeah, we saw the Wall Street Bull. Yeah,
it is kind of a funny street. It's really small, and it's not what you think it would be out there in Wall Street, is it?
Yeah.
So I had a daughter that lived in New York City, so we kind of toured all the spots around Manhattan. So.
Yeah. So we were there for a while, and he finally got the land flattened, and then they decided to put an interstate exit ramp there, and so that changed a lot of things once that exit ramp went in. He ends up selling to IDT, which is out there. So it was Rockwell and IDT for a long time. And then Walmart came and they said they wanted a piece. So he sold all the rest of the ground to Walmart at that point. And so we still have one little piece that's left in there, right there by Cheddar's on the west side. That little piece there. And then there used to be a hotel there. Went through many different owners, and there's a little piece there behind the Aldi store. So that's all we got left there. But the price of the ground and the access to the interstate and everything was getting really difficult for our trucks to make left-hand turns and get in and out of the terminal. And so we decided in 2006 we'd move up to North Liberty. And so that's where we're at today. We bought the farm that was off that exit. And still on the ground there today, and we have great access to the interstate, both north and south there, especially with the 3 lanes going in now to Cedar Rapids. It's going to be fantastic. So it's a really good spot for us, and we still call it the new office, but we've been in there since 2007. So it's been a long time already.
So tell us more about your dad, because he obviously is a visionary, because I don't remember how hilly it was out there, but I remember him moving dirt.
Yeah.
And I think we all thought, what's he doing? There isn't an interchange.
Right.
And he's just flattening this out, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
But he had to known that, eventually there's an interchange, because the value of the dirt obviously went from farm ground to whatever, quite a bit more.
I never asked him how that happened. I'm not sure how it did, but I do know that he always had an interest in real estate. Right. He probably got a really good deal on the piece of ground as a whole, right? And he was sitting up there where our shop used to be, which is now the Walgreens.
Right.
And so he just decided nobody's ever going to do anything with this. If it's going to be so hilly, I'm just going to flatten it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think he really had a plan. But I think he knew eventually that they'd probably have to put a exit there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did.
And once Walmart went in, it just exploded.
Once Walmart went in, it just was gone.
It was exploded.
Yeah.
All the little outlots and whatever just blew up. So
for
another thing I remember Russ did was he had a lot of warehouse, like Costco, I think was your warehouse, and things on the southeast side. And he knew by hauling that some of the vendors like Maytag and whatnot would need warehouses off rail spurs. So he did the
So he built the warehouse, which is now Costco.
Yeah.
And he built that for, at the time, was a Manna, which we were hauling for. Of course, Maytag bought a Manna, and Whirlpool bought Maytag and a Manna. And so he rented that for a while. Things kind of got tough in 07 and 08 and 09 in that time frame. He passed away in 2011. And then so, we're sitting there with a wide open warehouse for about a year and a half, and I'm like, what are we going to do with this thing? Well, Costco comes to town and says, hey, we'd like to look at this place, and they said, but it's too big. We don't need all this space, and I was just trying to come up with everything I could think of to get them to buy it, because it had been empty, and finally we're like, why don't you use it as a indoor parking, part of it, and use the smaller side for the store, and that's what they did. And, it makes a lot of sense in the long term, especially when you're in the winters of Iowa and the wind and the rain and everything else. I think it worked out pretty well for them.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you got to love Costco.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The other day I was listening to there's another podcast. The guys that put it on are unbelievable. They really research companies. They're fantastic. It's called Acquired.
Oh, yeah.
And they do businesses, and they've done Costco. They just did Starbucks with Howard Schultz.
Yeah.
And they do a fantastic job. But the Costco story is amazing.
Uh-huh.
And that's why Charlie Munger was on their board, and
right.
Berkshire Hathaway, and
yeah,
it just keeps growing. And what a great story!
They do a great job.
It is great
sure.
people and whatnot.
Yeah.
So let's go back. So Heartland kept growing, right?
Yep.
And then you went from 16 trucks to 4,000 today.
We're over 5 today.
Over 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
How many different towns are you in? Phoenix and different.
So we have 27 different terminals across all the United States. Mostly all the big players. Seattle, Portland, L.A., Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Atlanta, Jacksonville. I can name them all if you wanted to, but
that's all right.
They're all the big spots.
And you're in the top 3 largest trucking companies
in terms of truckload, what we do.
Okay.
Right. We don't do a lot of things that a lot of these other companies do, where they might be LTL. Right. They might have an arm of brokerage. They might do flatbeds. They might do reefers. They might do a whole mess of different things. Right. But if you just come down to just truckload and what we do, 53-foot dry vans, yeah, we're certainly in the top 5 of just that category.
What would you, if you had one strong point, or maybe you have several, what's driven that success?
Service. Absolutely.
Okay.
Service. That's what we have done since the beginning. We strive for 99% on time. We've been FedEx's Carrier of the Year for 18 years in a row. Last year we had 30,000 pickups and deliveries, and we had 6 late. It's like 99.98% on time. So we hire really good drivers. We have good equipment, and our calling card is service. Right, so
yeah, that's amazing.
We're not the cheapest out there, probably not the most expensive, but we deliver our loads on time.
Well, that's a good lesson to learn. It's just like in the real estate business, we build houses, we take care of people.
Yeah.
Service after we get done building them a home.
Right.
You got to do it. You
have to.
You got to make that extra call. You got to go out weekends, nights, and I remember a story, and I don't know. I didn't really talk to your dad about it, but I remember somebody talking about it. It's when GPS first came out.
Yeah,
and
global positioning system, and they make them right over there in Corville.
Yeah, right next door in Rockwell.
Yeah, in Rockwell, yeah.
And I don't know how true this is. This could just, but I think your dad was maybe pulling an all-nighter, which I think he did once in a while. Went in all night and kind of kept track of the trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how you do it.
They go 365, 24 hours a day. It's always going. Yeah. It never shuts down.
And there was a truck, that GPS was just coming out, and I think your dad was checking on whose truck, where is this supposed to be? And
yeah.
I think he called somebody. This could be wrong, but I like the story. It tells a lot about your father. He said, it's like 3 a.m. and he goes, you got this guy. He goes, where are you? I'm so-and-so. Well, why aren't you in Georgia?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
He was tracking the truck, and he just got that. It's kind of a neat story.
Yeah, so. It is. It's advanced so far from where it was, in the 80s, 90s, heck, even 10 years ago. We can tell so much data. We can tell if the guy's got his seatbelt on or not. We know how fast he's going. We know where he's at. We know how many hours he has left to run for the day, whether he's ahead of schedule, whether he's behind schedule. I mean, it's amazing the technology that's been applied to trucks now.
So you have a board that you can tell where they're all
Oh,
at.
yeah. Yep.
You can
we got 4 screens. We actually have 4 companies: Heartland Express, And then we own Smith Transport, CFI, and Millis Transport. So we've got all four up on the board. We can see all the trucks all day, every day.
So are you looking to acquire other companies? I know you've been buying stock back.
Yeah, we've bought companies over the years, probably about 10 of them, right? And that's kind of what my dad and my grandpa did, is they bought companies, but then they'd sell them, right? And we just have kind of kept them and grown through that way. Also grown organically as well. So if the right trucking company comes along, we're always looking at them, right? It's not like we have to get to a certain point at a certain time and do this, every 3 years or something like that. It's got to be the right fit. And we've been really lucky with the companies that we've bought have been the right fit for us and similar in nature, but Barry Smith, for example, we just bought them in 2022. He's 78 or 79 years old, no kids, nobody interested in doing the business. He's got to move on. And, so he wanted to sell it to Heartland. There's other good carriers out there as well, but that one worked out really well. And we've owned those guys for about 2 years now. So if the right ones come along like that, it's a good thing to add to your portfolio.
Do you have children coming into the business, succession plans?
Yeah, so I have 4 boys, and all of them work in the shop, where I started. And I tell you, he had me washing trucks from the day I could walk. I think I'm washing trucks out there and washing. Now today, of course, we got electronic washer for the trucks, but still, the oil's got to be changed and the tires got to be changed and they got to be greased and all of those things, yards mowed and everything. So they all work out there during the summer. And one of them's in college right now over at Iowa State. And I got a junior in high school, and then I got a 12-year-old as well. And then my oldest one, 24, he's working in the office now, but worked a long time in the shop over summers, and so now he's in the offise.
So you're trying to bring him along, and
yeah,
so far
not that they have to do it, right? But they've had interest in it and have grown up kind of with it. And if they choose to do something else, they choose to do something else. But that's their choice.
Yeah. Where do you get your drivers?
All over the United States.
Really?
All over the United States. Yeah, but we actually have more drivers that live in the state of Texas than any other state. Probably around 700 drivers that live in Texas, probably around 600 that live in Florida, right? So these drivers, they tend to migrate towards states that don't have state tax and nice weather, right? So Florida and Texas are heavy markets for drivers. And of course, they're big states as well and a lot of population there. But we have at least one driver that lives in every state in the lower 48.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do they drive 8 hours max? Is that the law?
You can drive 11 hours, and then you have to take 10 off, and then you can start driving again, right? So you can actually drive 14 hours of the 24 with a 10-hour break. And it's the same as an airline pilot, right? It's the same rules for those guys.
And they check them once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So now it's all electronic logs, right? Go back 10 years ago, paper logs, you're writing down, so on and so forth. Now, everything that's out there, other than trucks that are very old in the 90s, everything is electronic logs. So there's no fudging.
Yeah, you can't
right?
cheat.
You can't, no. I mean, going back to the GPS, as soon as the truck moves, the clock starts.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, even if you move down the block, you just started your clock, and it's going to keep ticking until you've got to stop.
Is that a software program or?
Yeah.
Just
yeah. And GPS and some of that technology that I was talking about. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
So tell us more about, let's get into your personal family. And I know you went to Solon.
I did. Yep.
88 graduate. And then you went to Luther. Played basketball.
Played basketball up there. It was a great college.
Yeah.
Loved being at Luther, and like to go visit anytime I can now today. But it was funny because I walk in as a freshman, and Luther at that point had a no cut policy for any athlete for any sport that they wanted to be in. So if you wanted to be out for a sport, you just went out, right? You didn't even have to be recruited, right? And so I show up there, and there was like 27 freshman basketball players at Luther to start off with,
Really?
right? Yeah, it was a lot of kids, right? And so we had to have split practices, but it stayed out. Kids moved away, kids quit, and kind of weaned down, and there were 6 of us left at our senior year, but had a great time at playing basketball, kind of like another job, really. I can't imagine what these Division I athletes do and how much they have to go through to participate, because it was a lot even at D3. Yeah.
You didn't have NIL then, did you?
We did not have NIL, no.
So
not at all.
So that's so with your and then I understand you're a runner too.
I am, yeah.
Did you start running at Luther? Or?
I couldn't stand running. When I was in high school, I played golf just so I didn't have to go off a track, and I love golf. And I've taught my boys how to play, and they're getting pretty good right now. But no running and track. And then, I was always concentrating on basketball, and finally got through basketball. And then it was like, what am I going to do? Right. I mean, for the last 10 years of my life, all I do is play basketball. And when you graduate college, there's no more gym. There's no more good competition. There's nothing. Right. And so I just said one day, all right, I'm going to start running, and just to stay in shape, and I started, and I could probably do about a mile or 2 miles. Okay. And one day I just said, you know what, I'm going to run as far as I can run and just see how far I can go. And I went about 12 miles that day. And I was like, well, if I can do 12 miles, I think I can probably actually train and concentrate, read up on it, see how you do it, and try to run a marathon. So I did that, and got that behind my wheel. And then I was like, if I really train, maybe I can make the Boston Marathon. And so in 1996, I ran the 100th Boston Marathon. Wow. That was one of my goals. Tons of people out there, just an amazing race. And the biggest race at that point that Boston had ever had. And I remember the starting gun went off, and it was almost 22 minutes before I got to the start line. But of course, they have, the ankle bracelets where you get your own time and so forth. But that's how many people were in front of me. Right. And I was probably in the middle somewhere, and even more behind. So
Heartbreak Hill.
Heartbreak Hill. Oh, yeah. Mile 18. That was a rough one, for sure.
You're starting to get a little sore by then, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then the wall comes after that. For most people, somewhere between 18 and 22 miles is where the wall is at, and you got to get through that. But just a really enjoyable run. It wasn't like you could sprint out and try to pass a bunch of people, because it was just mobs of people. You were going nowhere, right? You just tried to keep up with the pace. Right. And so that was really good. I kept doing marathons for a while. I probably have done 20, 21, somewhere in that range. And I got up and I got a little older. I'm like, wow, this is getting hard, right? And I said, I think I need to switch my strategy here. So I started running and biking and swimming and trying to do triathlon. So again, start back down at the bottom. Don't know anything about it. Just heard that it's really good, and start learning, read up on it, and follow the training manuals and so forth. So you start out with a sprint, and then you go to an Olympic distance, and then you go to half Ironman, and then the full Ironman. And
you start with the pig man?
I started with the pig man. Yeah, exactly. Up here in Palo. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where'd you do your half at?
Well, the big man was half at that point. I think they're only Olympics now or sprints, but it was in August. Yeah. Yep.
It's probably hot, wasn't it?
Oh, so hot. So hot. I mean, it's crazy how hot that thing was. But I think I did that one 4 times maybe, the half. And then 2009 was my my first Ironman up there in Madison, Wisconsin.
You did Madison.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do Arizona too? Or?
Yeah, and then 2015 I did Arizona as well. So those two. Funny story about Arizona. I'm telling you, you know, I'm thinking it's going to be so hot. You know, we go down there, we're prepping. They're taking you to the little meetings, and you know, you got to hydrate and you got to stay. You know, make sure you drink and drink and drink and get. You know, so I'm doing all that, right? Well, the day of the Ironman, it's cold and it's raining, right? And so I get in that water and it was frigid. I mean, it's so cold I couldn't even believe it. I had my wetsuit on too, and it was just, I could hardly get going. But I finally got going, got out, you know, it's pouring down rain, you know, and I'm climbing on the bike, and you go out into the desert 3 times, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And the first time I go out there, you know, there was a lot of wrecks because it was wet and, you know, not good for the skinny tire bikes that you're on. And get back around the first loop, okay, start out the second loop, less people, right? Start out the third loop, even less people. And I'm going out into the desert for the third time, and you know, there's like 3 or 4 different times there's just people on the side of the road there with a flat tire, right? And I was feeling sorry for myself, and then I saw these guys with flat tires. I'm like, you just keep going, right? At least you're not sitting there in the rain. And I got out there to that turnaround and to come back, and there was a little bit of downhill, so you could go a little bit faster going down, but I couldn't. I was so cold. You know, I had on biking shorts, my tank top, and my shoes, basically. Pouring rain.
Right.
And for hours. I mean, it was like, when does this happen in Arizona?
Yeah.
Right? But it did that day, of course. Yeah. And I got about halfway down, and I was just about ready to pull over, and I'm like, Lord, please show me the sun. Just let it come out. Just let me know it's there. Right? And you know, about 10 minutes later, the sun came out for about 15 minutes and kind of warmed things up a little bit. And I was able to finish, and then I did the run and finished that. But that was a rough day. Yeah.
I think you experience about every emotion on an Ironman.
You do.
Everything. You're going to cramp. You might get sick. Cold,
you're happy.
Hot.
You're sad. You're mad.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you
keep
just
going.
go through them all.
Yeah. I'm sure you can relate that to business too.
Oh,
How hard you have to work with your company.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's great days, there's terrible days, you know, there's good days, there's bad days, you know, and sometimes it goes hour to hour, right? Just depending on what's happening out there. You know, we're dealing with the weather. We got this hurricane coming in now, you know, should hit land sometime shortly here. That's never good for our trucks and putting drivers in dangerous spots. So luckily we have this GPS and we can move them away before, you know, these things hit. But it's constant. You know, it's hurricanes, it's tornadoes, it's high winds, it's ice, it's snow, it's, you know, you name it across America. We're not just looking at Iowa City, Iowa here, right? We got to look at the whole map, right? Because we're affected everywhere by any kind of weather. And so, there can be some highs and some lows for sure each day.
If you did Ironman Wisconsin, if anybody ever tells you, hey, Mike, Wisconsin's flat, you'd probably laugh. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, no doubt.
Toward Verona and Cross Plains.
Yeah, Verona, Cross Plains, Mount Orb. I mean, there are some killer hills back there.
Yeah.
It is.
I remember the first
crazy.
time I rode the loop, I go, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
and
you got to go twice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2 laps,
Mm-hmm.
and then the stick.
Yeah.
And then Madison was.
What year did you do it?
You know, I did it 3 times. I did 13, 14, and 18.
13, 14, and 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did Arizona, and then I did Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Coeur d'Alene, the water was like 53.
Oh.
And I'm on our practice swim, we're all standing along the side. We're kind of dip our toes. We had wetsuits, and I even had a hat, too.
Yeah.
So like, that's cool. And then finally my buddy just jumped in and took off, and it was like an ice cream freeze for about a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And then you start to warm up in it. And,
Right.
And you're okay, but that first, when you get in, you just
I know it.
And the restriction of the suit, you know, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Madison was fine. The weather was good there. You know, it was in October, and the lake had been warm and so forth. But
What
I think
year?
the one that was 09.
09. Okay.
The one in Arizona, the water was just so cold. I was just so surprised at how cold it was. I didn't think going down. I mean, I was like, I'm going to Arizona. Why am I even bringing the wetsuit? Right? Thank goodness I did.
Yeah, ours was like 61 or 2, so it was cold. I mean, it wasn't Coeur d'Alene cold, but
right.
So, well, that's interesting. So,
yeah,
that's quite a fraternity, being an Ironman. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Would you encourage your boys to try that?
You know, I'd just encourage anyone to get out and exercise.
Right.
You don't have to be an Ironman. You don't have to be a marathoner, right? But just get out and either bike or swim or walk or play golf or do something.
Right.
You know,
Get
just
outside.
move.
Tell us about COVID.
Yeah.
How did that affect Heartland?
So COVID is something that affected all of us. I'll give you what happened in the trucking industry. Well, the first thing that happens is, they shut down the country for the most part, and they say, hey, everybody go home.
Right.
Right. And some people stay at home longer than others. Right. But they go home and they're sitting around for a couple of days and they're like, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to redo the bathroom. I'm going to paint the halls. I'm going to put on a deck. I'm going to redo the kitchen, all of this stuff, right? So what does everybody do? They start ordering and order and order and order for a year and a half, right? Same time, what's happening is a lot of manufacturers in the United States are dependent on parts from other countries all around the world. And these countries are shutting down, right? And they can't get parts to build trucks, build buses, build cars, build anything, right? So all of these big companies are panicking as well. So what are they doing? They're ordering everything they can get their hands on, right, to keep their lines going. So all of this freight is put upon us. You remember sometime in 2021, there was over 50 boats sitting outside of Long Beach in California waiting to get in. Well, the reason they're waiting is we can't move it any faster, right? We have to follow the rules. We have to follow the logs. We have only so many trucks. There's only so many trains, and there's so much freight coming at us, right? And so then you hear about, well, I ordered this, and it's going to be 6 weeks before I get it, right? People have learned what the supply chain is and what happens when over-ordering takes place. So that went on for 2 years. I mean, all we could haul, all day, every day, as much freight as you could do, right? So that was great during that time, 2020, 2021, part of 2022. But then things kind of get back to normal, right? And now nobody's ordering anything, right? They've already done their remake on their house that you do every 10 years, and everybody did it, right? So now no one's ordering anything. And now we have, inflation goes up, interest rates go up, groceries, gasoline, taxes, everything goes up, and there's no discretionary income for most Americans, right? So the ordering stops. So now for these 2 years, it's been slim pickings for the trucking industry, and slim pickings for anybody out there moving freight. There's not enough for the capacity that we have. But this happens in our industry. It goes up and it goes down, and it goes up and it goes down. And we're always in a constant flux of that, knowing where we're at. Now, this one has lasted quite a bit longer than most of them last. The other ones might last a year, a little over a year, but we're fully 2 years into this one, and it's painful.
You seen light in the tunnel with lower interest rates just came out.
Lower interest rates, that's a good thing that comes down. But the other costs, they're still pretty persistent. Yeah. And we'll see. The $1 trillion worth of debt on American credit cards, first time in history. I mean, everybody's credit cards are maxed out.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing.
People are not going to buy.
I heard
a whole lot.
I heard the national debt when it was 24 trillion or something. That's it. We can't sustain it. We're 33 now.
Yeah.
And you just keep printing it.
Right. Right.
So it's like
exactly.
Yeah, won't get into politics, Dave. It's like somebody's got to wake up. We got to start.
It has repercussions, right? It's not free money.
Well, it's just like the COVID, and then was it PPL? They called it, and everybody got with the company got some money. I can't remember the
PPP.
Yeah, they were just calling here, and then pretty soon you put all that kind of federal money in the system. how are you going to pay it back? And then that created inflation.
Exactly.
And here we are.
And here we are.
And you look in a lot of things, fuel prices, and they're starting to come down, which is good. Mm-hmm. But, groceries, it's amazing. It is amazing on groceries.
Eating out, any of that kind of stuff, it's way up. Yeah. Way up.
Cars have went up 30-40% in the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years. So when you really look at it, so it is kind of, hopefully it'll start to free up here with it's an election year. Yeah. Interest rates are going down. They look for another decrease in rates, I think, the end of the year. So
yeah. But the debt is a problem.
Yeah, it is.
It's a problem for a lot of Americans. It's a problem for America itself. Right. We have too much, right? We have to slow it down.
Yeah, the interest alone, I don't even know what that number is, but it'd be amazing. So
yeah.
Well, let's go. Sure. This has been, let's get into your personal family. So I know you have 4 boys.
Yeah.
And tell us about your boys and your wife. And I know you've had some health things inside that. So maybe share some things with us if you'd like.
Well, married Nicole in 1997. And she's from Newton.
Newton. Okay.
Yep. She's a Hawkeye. Went to school here, went to grad school. And almost didn't get married because about 2 weeks before we got married, my dad said, "Hey, we just bought this company down in Tennessee, and I need you to go down there and run it. So after you get married, pack your bags. You're going to Tennessee." About
that was your wedding gift.
Yeah. But so here, we'd been married 2 weeks or whatever, and we're headed to Tennessee to a place that we'd never been before. And but we loved it, and it was a great thing for our marriage because it was just her and I, and we didn't have a lot of distractions with family or a lot of different friends. We were forced to kind of be on our own for a while, and we were down there for about 3 years. This is Johnson City, Tennessee. We moved down there in 1998, and then we became pregnant with Clay, our oldest, in about 2000, and he was born in August of 2000, and then we found out who really was pulling the strings in our family, and that was my mom, right? Because she was like, as soon as we had Clay, she's like, "All right, Russ, get him home. He's been down there long enough. I need to see this grandkid," right? So back to Iowa we went, and we've been here ever since. And he was our first one. Grant was our second one, the one that's Iowa State. Nick's our third one. Nick had some issues with cancer, and he was extremely lucky, extremely grateful to the University of Iowa here. We found out on April 15th, 2016, that he had leukemia, and so we go down here to treat. And I was always amazed with Iowa. They were like, "Okay, this is a special thing, right? We can't really handle it the way it should be handled here. If you guys can go to CHOP, which is the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, that's where you need to go." Right? I'm like, "Why do I want to go to Philadelphia? We don't need to be in Philadelphia." And they're like, "Just trust us. That's where you got to go." Right? And so off to CHOP we go, and what an amazing place CHOP is, and we've become donors out there, and they had a treatment there. It was called CAR T-cell treatment, which has now been FDA approved. And Nick was one of the kids that kind of tested it out. Right, he was number 100 on this scale that Dr. June had made, where they take the blood out of the patient and they turn it into the white blood cells into cancer-killing cells. Outside of the body. Then it takes them like a month to do this. And then they inject your own blood back into you, which they did with Nick. And then the blood, attacks the cancer cells. And it's exactly what it did for Nick. And I mean, it obliterated his cancer. And so after that, though, his bone marrow was the problem. It was like a cancer factory. His bone marrow was, and so we had to get that out of there. So we said, where's the best place to go for bone marrow transplant? And they gave us a few names, and we chose the Children's Hospital of Seattle out in Seattle, and went out there. He was in there for 6 months, got a bone marrow transplant, then recovery after that. And Nicole lived with him for 6 months out in Seattle, and I had the younger boys at that time, so almost every weekend or every week we're back and forth to Seattle. She stays out there with Nick. I come out, bring the other boys, go back home, let them go to school, play football and all that, and then do it all again. So it was a trying time for our family, but everything worked out great. Nick still treats here at the University of Iowa. A lot of the things that Seattle and Philadelphia were doing at that time that Iowa wasn't doing at that time. Iowa has now, because of the Stead Family Children's Hospital and all of the good things that have been happening down there, he can treat here now. And so it's been fantastic to do that. And then my youngest one, Adam, another cancer story. We get pregnant with Adam, and a couple days later we find out my wife's got breast cancer, right? And so we had to go through all that. She's pregnant with Adam. She was such a trooper and kept her head up the whole time and fought it and eventually won that over. And now she runs the Strands of Strength charity along with the people out in Des Moines. She runs the eastern half, and Des Moines runs the western half. But what they do for that charity is they raise money for wigs, right? So when all people, but really especially women, when they lose their hair, it's a big deal, right? And so all of the money that they raise goes towards wigs for women, right? And so hundreds and hundreds of wigs they provide each year across the state to women that need it because of cancer.
How'd you get through all this? Faith?
Oh, yeah, faith for sure. A lot of prayers, a lot of just trying to follow what people tell us to do, what's the best way to go. And it's the cancer community out there is just such a blessing because it's really a teamwork of all these doctors all the way across the United States, and they figure out what these kids have and what's wrong with them and where's the best place to send them, or, we don't have any room at this one, we got to go to this one or whatever. And it's just, I always thought when you just went to the hospital, they just treated you at the hospital. But when you have cancer like that's in the younger ages, it's just this network of these doctors that just do such an amazing job getting you hopefully where you're supposed to go.
Well, it's just, it gives new meaning to the wave.
Yeah.
I almost tear up every time.
It's amazing.
Other players, the team.
Best tradition in college football, and it is.
Nothing better.
Nothing better.
Because you think what those kids are suffering and going through and their parents. And
I tell people all the time, that come to games with us and so forth, and they see the first quarter and everybody waving up there to those kids. And you got to understand, those kids aren't in there for a week. Right. They're in there for a long time. Right. Lots of them. They're not a little sick. They're a lot sick. And to do that each Saturday is a really special thing for them.
And we have this right in our backyard.
Yeah,
we're so blessed with that, aren't we?
We are.
So I know that your family is very philanthropic in all kinds of things. You want to tell us about some of the things you're passionate about?
Well,
in giving.
Yeah, my mom was a school teacher, right? And way back before 1978, when my dad was selling trailers and tractors and trying to make ends meet, mom was a third grade teacher, right? And she was doing what she needed to do every day before we were even born, and so teaching's always been a big part of what we do philanthropically because of my mom. And kids, helping out kids, the athletic programs both at Iowa State, you and I, we really like to donate in the state of Iowa, and everybody always asks me, are you Hawkeye fans? Are you Cyclone fans? You and I, Luther, what are you getting? And I just say, we're just Iowans, right? We just love the state. And, we grew up here, and so many good people that live here in Iowa. That's where we want to give back. Not that we don't give in other parts of the country, like at CHOP, like I mentioned, in Seattle Children's Hospital and other things around. But, Iowa Make-A-Wish Foundation has been fabulous. We've given some money over there. the Iowa Donor Network. We've given some there. My dad had to have a liver transplant. They did a fantastic job finding him a donor, and it ended up extending his life by 5 years, and he got to see 5 more grandkids that he wouldn't have seen without the Iowa Donor Network. So just things in Iowa, that make sense, that help people. That's what we try to do.
It's a great place to call home, isn't it?
It is.
And there's nothing
Fantastic.
better than Iowans. I mean, it's like I tell people, you have a flat tire along the road, they're going to stop and help you fix it.
Yeah.
They're not going to run over you. They're going to help you. It's just the way we're made. And I think that's probably been some of the success of Heartland, is just surround yourself with good Iowa folks, right?
Well, being a trucking company, we could have our headquarters anywhere in the United States, right? We could be in Dallas, we could be in Atlanta, we can be in Phoenix, wherever. But we have such a good workforce here, and it's just where we grew up, and it doesn't make any sense to move. We could if we wanted to; it wouldn't be hard, but just the people and how hard they work and all they've given to the state, we want to stay here.
You ever thought about writing a book about your successes and where you came from in Heartland and
I've never thought of that.
Your father and where you came from?
No, maybe someday, but I'm going to be 55 this week, so I hope we still got a few more years.
Do you teach any classes at Papa John Center, business schools, or at Iowa State?
I've lectured there. I've gone into classes. Member of the Dean's Advisory Board over at Iowa State. I've done some things over there, and so just whenever time permits, I like to do those things. But I'm not going to be a full-time teacher. I got a full-time job I need to take care of.
Well, you'd be a treasure to talk to, especially for young kids coming up. So learn some things about business and entrepreneurship and hard work and all the things that made you successful.
Yeah, thank you.
So I usually wrap up with 3 questions.
Okay.
And so I usually ask you, the 3 are, who's your hero? Tell us about your hardship and your highlight in your life so far.
Yeah.
So who would be your hero?
Oh, it'd definitely be my grandfather and my dad. They kind of shine the light on what I do now every day. It's a lot different than what they did, but the foundation is the same, right? And so, those 2 guys had certainly the most effect on me.
Is that where you learned service?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely service.
You're going to be on time. You're going to do it right.
Yep.
Clean trucks.
Yep. Hire the best guys that you can, and do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And so they instilled that in me, and that's what I try to instill in my kids.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with that philosophy. Can you? You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
What about hardship?
Hardship was certainly my son and my wife going through cancer.
Yeah.
And my father, right? That was a trying time when my dad was going through. He really struggled not being at work every day. And he's down in the hospital, or he's at home, or he just can't do what he wants to do. Right. And that was a struggle for me because I'm the liaison between what's going on at work and him. So he had some memory issues at that point too. That was really hard because I'd go home and I'd have the same conversation with him over and over and over again and again and again, and it was kind of like Groundhog's Day for him towards the end. And he just believed he was in his Sunday chair and going through his reports, and it was Sunday every day to him, right? But it was a couple of years, and so that was hard. But the good thing was that transitioned the role from him to me, and he could still give me advice and tell me what I should do in this situation and that situation, but he just couldn't be there,
right?
And so it helped our whole team transition away from him at that point, and he was still kind of there being our coach.
Probably you couldn't have a better mentor, could you?
No, definitely not.
No, that's neat.
Yeah.
What about highlight?
Yeah. Oh, highlights are certainly, being married to Nicole, my sons, certainly my family, Yeah, those are the best things.
Yeah, that's
right?
a neat thing.
Yeah.
And then you also have two sisters too, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, my sisters.
Do they work for you too, or?
Yeah, so Julie has worked with us for a very long time, and her oldest daughter Maddie works with us now, and they kind of take care of the special events that we have, right? So it's a golf outing, or the banquets, or driver rewards, that kind of stuff. They do a fantastic job. I don't want to have anything to do with it because they know what they're doing, and they've done a great job doing it, and they continue to do it today. They work part-time. They're not in there every single day, but they've been at it for a long time. My sister Angie's husband, Brian, works with us. He's worked with us for almost 30 years, and he does a fantastic job for us as well. So all of our families are tied somehow into the business. And, certainly my mom, she's still alive. She's doing well. She lives up here at Bridgewater and gets to go to a lot of basketball games, a lot of football games. Julie picks her up, I pick her up, Angie picks her up. We're going to however many she wants to go to with 12 grandkids. She's got 12. Interesting thing is Julie, she has 4 girls. I have 4 boys, and then Angie has 2 boys and 2 girls. So how it got split that way, I don't know, but it's
something
a lot
in the
of
water,
fun.
right?
Yeah.
So, well, this has been exciting.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. I think it's.
Thanks for inviting me, Gary.
I appreciate
Nice.
your success, sharing your story, your family. You're a treasure here, a gem in Eastern Iowa.
Thank you.
Solon, Iowa City. It's just amazing. And just what a resource, and we're just glad to have you.
Well,
here.
it all goes back to the people of Iowa, and how hard, our drivers work and how hard the employees work, and just giving back to these things is what we want to do. So,
Good.
it comes around.
Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Mike
thanks, Gary.
Gerdin, Heartland Express.
Yeah, appreciate it, Gary.